Welcome to this edition of the Clinical Works podcast. I'm Adam Silati. A big part of healthcare is making sure that you know where your patients are when they're not seeing you. And a big blind spot for practices up until now has been the ability to know when they are admitted and discharged from the hospital. Well, fortunately, some recent developments have made sure that hospitals are now required to send those notifications to providers. And to talk with us a little bit about how those messages are being sent and what options eClinicalWorks users have to utilize and work with those messages, we have Farah Saeed from the interoperability team at eClinicalWorks here today. Hey, Farah, how are you today?
Hi, Adam. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, Farah, let's talk about these event notifications. Give us some background on what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you introed, it is so important for providers to know where their patients are. We can't always rely on them to remember or even, to be in a state to be able to share that information. They might be in the hospital and unable to communicate. So having a mechanism for these notifications to get out to providers is really important. And of course, CMS, the government recognized that, which is why it's now a requirement for hospital systems to be pushing out these notifications to other providers, to the providers in the patient circle of care, which is great for us because as an ambulatory system, we're generally on the receiving end of all those notifications.
And what's covered by some of these notifications, Farah? When we say event notifications, what events are we talking about?
Absolutely. So we have admissions, discharges, transfers, and ER admissions as well in that category.
Practices are already getting some info between Commonweal and care quality, though. So can you explain a little bit about how this is different from what they might be already getting through those networks?
Absolutely. So there is a key difference between these types of messages. So what Care Equality and Commonwealth do, their purpose really is to make sure that you have all information on your patient within their network available at the point of care. So Care Equality and Commonwealth pull in information when you mark a patient as arrived, or if you're in a note, when you're doing a manual query on our newer versions. So the purpose of them is really you have the patient, you are seeing the patient, and you're pulling in the information at that time. With event notifications, these need to be pushed out from the hospital system. So it's a push versus a pull, essentially. So the main difference there is that these hospitals are proactively letting you know when something is happening, and that's not the case with Care Equality and Commonwealth.
We're talking about a fundamentally different type of communication.
Yeah.
But just because this communication is now available, of course, we need ways to receive that information. So what kinds of connections are available, are compatible with these event notifications, and how can eCW users make use of those?
There are lots of different ways that hospital systems can get these messages out to practices. They wanted to make it as easy as possible on the hospitals, but for us on the receiving side, that means we have to support all these different ways and means of getting these messages in. So just an important point, I also want to, let all of our watchers or listeners know here that, depending on how your hospital system is sending these messages to, that's an important consideration. So the first way that I like to consider first, it's the easiest. So hopefully, we know a lot of the vendors out there have committed to using direct messaging to send out these event notifications. So really important for all of our practices out there, make sure you have direct enabled on your system. It's great for referrals, sending and receiving referrals. And now if your hospital system is sending out event notifications, if they've just chosen this path, simply by having direct messaging on, you'll just start seeing those messages come in. You don't need to take any additional action. The second way is through traditional HL7 ADT messages. So these are admission, discharge, transfer, traditionally used for creating patients and updating patient information on our side. But again, most of these hospitals use them for other means, and one of that is event notifications now. So with ADTs, we do need to build that interface with each point that's sending it. So whether that's an individual hospital or more commonly, a state or regional HIE. Often the HIEs are going to consolidate this information and then push out one single feed.
And can you talk about any of the costs that might come up with these that might be helpful?
Sure, absolutely. Let me start bottom up, I guess. Care Equality and Commonwealth, we offer that service free of cost already. So that is there. Hopefully everyone has turned it on. If not, this is another reason, hopefully, to get you guys to turn that on. Those integrations are fully free of cost. So you can gather other information on your patients and very soon event notifications. Next up, I would say is Direct. Direct, we do offer turning that on for your system for a flat rate. It's $120 per database per year for an organization level security certificate, which is our most common for groups that do have maybe some government regulations or communicating at a little higher security and compliance level. You may need to get security certificates per provider, but that's not a common thing that most of our practices do. In either case, regardless of your setup, every provider in your database will get their own direct address. So that is the good news there. And then the last mechanism were HL7 ADT messages. There will be pricing associated with these simply because it's something we need to build individually with each hospital or HIE. Pricing on this could vary. We're doing our best to make it as low cost as possible. If you're already communicating with the HIE, there might be an install fee, potentially no additional monthly fees associated with that, but that we'll have to discuss on a case-by-case basis.
Where does all this information show up in eCW? What are we going to do with these notifications?
Yes, wonderful question. So we have two options available. First one, free option, Transition of Care Notifications Dashboard. So this is available in our latest release of eClinicalWorks, of the new product, of the new version that's come out. So with the TCN dashboard, the Transition of Care Notifications, it's just going to be a screen where all these notifications will come in. If you're familiar with the L Jelly Bean or a couple of other of our jelly beans that are just lists of information, that's what it's going to be. You'll see a patient name, you'll see the hospital, the source that was sending the notification, and a reason. Was it an admission, a discharge, an ER visit? So just some high level information, really good if you just kind of need to know what's going on. Now, for those providers or practices who want to take it to the next level, who want to do more transition of care management, which is a whole program, and there are CPT codes that can be built for it. There's a lot of work that can be associated with that. We do have designed a transition of care management module, which is going to be the same list of event notifications, but with additional functionality. So you can do all of that management of this notification once it's come in, take notes, schedule appointments, fulfill all your requirements to then build that code associated with transition of care.
The next question, the last question, I guess, for today is going to be, if practices are looking for more information here on these options that they have, where should they go?
Open a support case. Just let us know, reach out to us. We're happy to answer questions on any of the individual interfaces. Regarding event notifications themselves, there is some information available on the CMS website if you just want to know what they are, what the requirement is for hospitals. Again, remember, as an ambulatory system, the requirement isn't on us, it's on the hospitals. We're just making it easier for you to view all of this information.
Absolutely. So as far as said, if you're looking for more information about any of these tools, you can visit my.eclinicalworks.com, find out more about all of these options that we've made available. If you'd like some more information, of course, you can also speak with your strategic account manager also. Well, Farah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It's always great to talk with you about such important topics that you always bring to us. So we're really excited to see what these notifications can do for our practices now and in the future.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed today's conversation. If you'd like to see more of our eClinicalWorks podcast episodes, you can check us out on iTunes, YouTube, or my.eclinicalworks.com. Again, if you've liked what you've seen here today, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel so that you know when new information is available. For the eClinicalWorks podcast, I'm Adam Salati, and thanks for watching.